Hi there and welcome to Hyundai Power Equipment. Today we're going to look at servicing your HYM460SPE lawnmower. Let's get straight on with it. I'm going to show you how to change the air filter, change the spark plug, change the engine oil, how to replace the pull start, how to change your cutting blade, and how to adjust various control cables on the lawnmower. Let's start with the air filter. The air filter is located here on the front left hand side of the engine from the operator's position. To remove the outer cover, you will see there are two plastic lugs on the top of the air filter housing here. Simply push down on the two plastic lugs and the air filter will come away. This unit is the air filter itself and it's a brand new one, so I'll replace it. To replace the air filter, put it back in this box in this position, making sure that all of the cardboard pleats of the filter are inside the square. You will then notice that there are two plastic lugs on the bottom of the air filter itself with a semicircular shape. They simply are part of the hinge mechanism and fit up and over these two rods at the bottom of the main air filter housing. So simply locate them in position, close the air filter, snap it shut, making sure it's fully closed, and that's how to change your air filter. Let's move on to changing the spark plug. The spark plug is located here on the front of the engine behind the spark plug cap. Allow the exhaust to cool because this will be hot and your hands are very close. Gently remove the spark plug cap and tuck it to one side out of the way. Then, using a spark plug spanner, place it down over the spark plug and loosen it off. Once loosened, you should be able to unscrew it by hand most of the way with a spark plug spanner, and I'll remove the spark plug the rest of the way by hand. That's how to remove the spark plug. Again, this is a new spark plug, so to replace the spark plug, screw it in with your fingers into the hole. Don't be tempted to use the spanner because there's a danger of cross-threading it, and it should screw in quite simply. So screw it in as far as you can do it with your fingers and simply retighten the spark plug. With a new spark plug, it has a compressible gasket, and you will find that once it's down 2, you may need to turn it around 3/4 of a turn. You'll feel when it gets tight, but it will get tightish, and then you'll be able to compress the gasket maybe 3/4 of a turn, and then it will stop. So that would be what would happen with a new spark plug. So having changed the spark plug, back on with the cap and press it firmly in position. Don't just pull it off when you take it off. Try and do it in a controlled manner, because there's a danger if you just pull it and it gives way that you rip the spark plug cap off the machine, as it were. Okay, so to replace the spark plug, back over the cap and push it down firmly. And that's how to change your spark plug. Let's look at changing the engine oil on your lawnmower. First thing you need to do is to run the engine for about 10 minutes to get the engine oil warm, and that will make it more fluid, and there's a likelihood that you'll get more out, and obviously it will save time as well when the engine oil is warm. Once the engine oil is warm, to change the engine oil, first of all, the oil is filled and removed through this tube where you put the oil in initially and where the dipstick is. So this is the area where the oil gets removed as well as filled in this lawnmower. So we'll remove the dipstick. Now there are two methods for removing the oil from this lawnmower. If you had it up on a table or a bench such as I have, and you tip the machine, I'll just demonstrate, up on its side like this, as you can imagine, the engine oil from the sump of the machine will come pouring out of that tube. And if you had an assistant or somebody there with a container, suitable container to catch the waste oil, you could simply tip it up and wait until it stops running out. Alternatively, far more simply, I have one of these oil extraction bottles. It's a simple little vacuum pump. I'll give you a little close-up of it, but basically you fit the tube on the end right down into the sump, and by operating the plunger a bit like a bicycle pump, this one's empty, but a bit like a bicycle pump, as you can hear, it's got a vacuum action and it will suck the oil straight into this bottle to be disposed of later. And that's a far simpler method, and it can be done, as you can see, quite simply on your own. These bottles are actually available from our parts department. So having removed all the engine oil, it will need refilling. We recommend a 1030 or a 1540 engine oil. The next step would be to refill the engine with engine oil. Now, I think the nominal on this engine is 600 millilitres, but you wouldn't want to put that whole 600 millilitres in one shot and take it as read. What you will need to do is put it in gradually, maybe a couple hundred mil at a time, until you get to the correct level on the dipstick. So when measuring the correct level, say I just poured some in now and I went in with a dipstick, just touch on the top and come out, there is a danger that I'd be dipping in to the oil that's still in the tube running its way down. So once you put a bit of oil in, leave it for 5-10 seconds or so to run down into the engine, and then test it. So we test it simply by placing the dipstick on top of the tube and pulling it back out. Now I'll give you a couple of close-ups of this. On the bottom of your dipstick there is the letter L, a cross-hatched area, and then the letter H. L for low oil, H for high oil, obviously. The place we're looking for is just underneath the letter H. If it starts to come into the letter H, you're in about the right area. So I'll give you a close-up of the dipstick and a close-up of the correct oil level. So as you can see, the letter L on the bottom, a cross-hatched area, and then the letter H. I'll put some oil on it to the correct level and show you what that looks like. So the correct oil level would be here, just at the bottom of the letter H. Okay, so having filled with engine oil, we'll replace the dipstick and simply screw it back into position, making sure that it's firmly attached. Should you damage the pull starter on your lawnmower, I'll show you how to replace it. The pull starter lies under this black plastic cover here, and there are two crosshead screws at the back, so we'll remove those first. That's the one. And that's the second one. Oops. So to remove this cover, lift from the back and it will just pop out. And that's the cover removed. You will notice on the pull starter itself there are 3 threaded studs, all with a nut that takes a 10mm socket. So we need to remove the 3 nuts. And the third one is just under the handle here. And that's the third one removed. Now you may have to jiggle it a little bit, but the pull starter just pulls off from the 3 nuts, and that's the pull starter removed. To replace a new pull starter, making sure that the pull handle is in the correct spot, it will go on one of 3 ways, but obviously over there, the way it came off, simply place the new pull start unit over the top of the 3 bolts and replace the 3 nuts. Now to replace the plastic cover, feeding it in from the front, you'll see that it has little lugs on either side. As you put it back in, starting from the front, just make sure they're all inboard, and it should nest back down exactly where it came from in the correct position. In fact, I've just missed one at the front there. Let's do that again. There we are, that's back in beautifully. and simply replace the 2 screws. That's the one replaced. I'll just retrieve the second one which got away from me, replace the second screw. And there we go. That's how to replace the pull starter assembly on your lawnmower. Next thing we're going to look at is changing the main cutting blade on your lawnmower. Now, as there's a likelihood of me rotating the engine, just as a safety precaution, I recommend that you remove the spark plug cap, just so that there's absolutely no chance of you inadvertently starting the engine when you rotate the crankshaft. So, first job, safety first, remove the spark plug cap. Right. In the centre, we have a bolt, takes a 16mm socket, and it's a conventional threaded bolt, so we'll undo anti-clockwise. Now the lawnmower blades are sharp, so I'm going to put some gloves on to do this. Holding the blade firmly, undo the bolt anti-clockwise. It'll take a few turns before it comes loose, because it is on a spring washer. This big washer is a spring washer. So before I move it completely, we'll just talk about the orientation of the blade, which way it goes on. You'll see on the one side there is a square lug, and on the other is an elongated lozenge shaped lug, more rounded. And on the support underneath there is a square lug sticking up and a rounded lug sticking up. So getting it the right way that way is pretty foolproof, really. The only thing you can do is put the blade on upside down. So if you look on the blade itself, you'll see that there is a lozenge shape embossed into the blade, and that lozenge is high on this side and hollow on the back. So just remember that the lozenge should be facing towards the ground. So let's just remove the bolt. You can see the 2 holes more clearly now, and I'll remove the blade. So as I said, it can't go on that way because this one is more square, that one's round, so that won't happen. It could go that way or upside down. Now, if you've got it upside down, you'll notice that the writing and the lozenge is hollow. So that side needs to go against the mower. Okay, just another little thing. Should you drop the bolt in the washer and the washer comes off, you'll notice that the washer has a hollow or concave side and a convex side or domed. The bolt needs to go in through the domed side with the hollow facing in, so when you place your blade back on, the hollow is against the blade. So simply do the bolt back up, and tighten it back up. I'll just put my glove back on. Tighten it back up with your 16mm socket. Now, it'll come down to the washer and it'll keep screwing as it flattens out that hollow washer. Now, as you can imagine, you need to do this blade up. I've got a 1/2 inch drive ratchet here, and I've got it as tight as I can practically do it without being silly. If you do have a torque wrench, the exact torque settings for this bolt can be obtained from our service department. Okay, so that's how to change the blade on your lawnmower. So let's show you how to replace the drive belt on your lawnmower. Now the drive belt goes from the little gearbox here, from the crankshaft underneath this cover. So first of all, you need to remove the lawnmower blade as I described earlier, not forgetting to remove the spark plug cap. So I'll just pull that off. Won't give you too much detail on this because I've just explained it. Okay, I'll take that out of the way. Right, the next step, you'll see there are 2 screws in this split plastic cover here. So we'll remove those 2 screws, and you'll see that this plastic cover comes in 2 pieces, and they simply click together once you've fitted them over the shaft. So I'll just remove those screws, one top, one bottom in this case, and as you can see, that cover actually clicks together, but does come into 2 pieces. So I'll put those to one side. So the next thing I need to do is remove the screw here that holds this plastic cover on, and another one at the bottom. And what I'll say at this point is that these screws stick through the deck of the lawnmower and up onto the top face, and they do have these little plastic covers on them. I'll give you a close-up of those and how to put them back on afterwards. But when you undo these screws, the plastic covers will fall off the other side. So just have a look for these covers first, and you can, while you're undoing the screw, hold on to them. So let's remove these 2 covers. That's the one screw. That's the second screw. To remove the cover, simply turn the shaft to line up the hole in the cover here, pull it off at the front, and it just pulls straight out of the way. Now, as you can see, now you can actually see the drive belt. Now, the tension on that drive belt is provided by a spring, but it can only go so loose because it's held back by this bracket here. So what I'll do is I'll give you a close-up of this bracket, and I'll show you how to remove this bracket. So this is the little bracket that stops the gearbox being able to come back and loosen off on this belt. So I'll just show you. A pair of 10mm spanners, one on each side. Let's just loosen it off. Just when you're taking it off, pay attention, it goes back in exactly the same way as it came off, so just pay attention to which way it was. So out with the bolt, hold the nut, and off with this bracket. You'll see it's got a little lug on one side, and it fits into a hole, and then the nut and bolt, both through from the middle, nut on the back, and that stops the travel for the little gearbox here. Now what you'll notice now is the gearbox can actually come back a lot further. Yeah, and that allows me the extra space to be able to remove the belt. So having removed the bracket, I can now pull forward this little union just a touch and feed the belt, now that I've got plenty of slack, over the top and remove this. Now inside here is a square key. When you remove this, there's a keyway inside, and in this case the key has stayed in the shaft. There is a long keyway and this key which fits in the keyway. I shall show you that when we come to put it back together. So having gone that far, we simply pop the belt off the shaft, loosen it towards the back and off the pulley. You can see the pulley in there and exactly how it goes. And that's how to remove your drive belt. To replace the drive belt, an exact reverse of what you've just done. You can hook it in through the hole in the back of the mower, over the top of the pulley. There we go. Having done that, push it back over the shaft. As I said, and it's an exact reverse, I'm going to hold the key. Probably easier if you had the shaft with this on the top, but I'm going to hold the key in the keyway, looking carefully at where the slot is in this bracket. Just to line it up, I can feel it going onto the key and push it back, just to make sure that the key is engaged. Having done that, I'll just feed the belt. It doesn't take a lot of effort, this. Back over the top, and there we are. So, having refitted the belt, let's refit the bracket over here. There we are. Back on with the bracket. Pop the bolt through from the inside. I'll just start the nut. that with a 10mm spanner. Making sure it's nice and square and the little notch is in the slot. And retighten the bracket in place. Okay, so the next step is put the plastic cover back on. So to replace the plastic cover, tuck the back roughly into position, feed it over your flange here, and you'll see that there are lugs in the back which just sit in the lawnmower housing, and there it is fitted. So we'll put its 2 screws back in. That's the top one. And in with the bottom one. Now we need to refit the 2 half covers. So just over the top here, as I said, they just click together. 2 seconds. There we go. Let's just find the hole there. There we go. In with the screw. Get one started. That's better. Get one started. Just hold them in place until you've got the 2 screws started. That's actually staying there for me. Put the bottom one in. That's the covers replaced. My next step is to replace the blade, just as I showed you earlier on when we were explaining how to change the blade. I'm putting the blade back on its correct orientation. I am now. Square to square, round to round. Here we are, and that's the blade refitted. One final little job is going to be to replace the little plastic caps on the top of the screws on the top of the deck behind here and here. I'll give you a close-up of that in a moment. So here's the little screw sticking up on the top from that plastic guard, and I've got the little top hat, shall we call it. It just screws on clockwise onto the screw to protect the sharp edge. Okay, there's another one on the other side exactly the same. I'll replace that. And that's how to change the drive belt on your lawnmower. Occasionally you may need to adjust the OPC handle on your lawnmower. Now the front handle here is the OPC, Operator Present Control Handle. Basically, it serves 2 functions. The lawnmower will not start unless you pull this handle, and if you release this handle, the lawnmower will stop. So it's an on-off switch of sorts. And the other thing it does is when you release it, it applies a brake which will slow the engine down and stop the blade rotating. Okay? So operator present, operator has to be present for the engine to be running, and this handle has to be pulled. Now, if there's excessive slop in this handle, it may not release the brake entirely, which will put more load on your engine, and it may not push the little micro switch down in the bottom if it's not adjusted correctly to allow the engine to start. So if this handle is sloppy and your engine won't start, it's more than likely the adjustment of this handle that needs doing. So I'll give you a close-up of the amount of slop I've got in this one, and I'll show you where to adjust it. So the adjustment point for the OPC handle is this here. And this lever here is the brake, and there's a micro switch behind and what have you. As you can see, there's probably 10 mil of free play in there without really going for it. So what I need to do is move the sleeve or the outer sleeve of the cable back from this bracket. So first thing I'll do is loosen these two nuts. A pair of 13 mil spanners, and let's just loosen them off. So as I need to move this barrel back, I'll loosen the front nut, give it plenty of room. I'll pull the barrel back, not yanking on it, just so that I got a little bit of free play in the cable to about there. So now I've got 3 or 4 mil of free play in that cable. That's a great place to start. So I'll just lock those nuts off again. Yeah, 3 or 4 mil there. And I'll go back to my OPC handle and check how much free play I've got. So having adjusted the OPC cable, let's have a look at the slack. Yeah, probably about 6 mil of slack in that cable, side to side. Just a tiny bit of play, and yes, it operates perfectly. So that's how to adjust your OPC cable. From time to time you may need to adjust the clutch cable on your lawnmower. Now the clutch cable is what engages the drive, and as you know the back handle is to engage the drive and basically has a clutch cable. Now this particular one, there's quite a bit of slop in the cable. Again, if I mess with the cable here, there's probably about 20 mil of travel in it, and it's adjusted on this barrel union here. I'll just remove the clip holding the cables up and you can see it more clearly. This barrel union here, I shall show you how to adjust that now and get in a bit closer on that for you. So to adjust the clutch cable, we need to loosen this barrel union here. So taking the long hexagon there that's 8 mil and holding it, I'll loosen off the 10 mil lock nut. There we are, that's loose. Now looking from this end, I'm going to turn this top part anti-clockwise. I've now got like a 2mm gap in there. I'll just have a feel of the handle up the top here. Yeah, that's taken the slack out, and I've still got some slack in the cable, but nowhere near as much as before, maybe 6 mil. So having done that, I'll wind the lock nut back up to the longer one of the two barrels, holding the barrel with a spanner and tightening up the lock nut. Just retest the cable. Yep, a little bit of slack in the cable, about 6 mil. The handle's not floppy. That's the job done. A little bit of tidying up. Cable's back in the clip, back to the frame, and that's how to adjust the clutch cable. From time to time, the battery on your lawnmower will want charging. Certainly when they're brand new, and probably about every 10 mows or so, just to keep it topped up, so that the battery's there and ready to be used when you need to use it. The mower comes with a 13 amp battery charger, plugs into a 13 amp wall socket, and on the other end, simply a jack plug, which plugs in there on the top right hand side of the battery from the operator position. So to charge the battery, into the wall, into the battery, and it'll charge up. And that's how to charge the battery on your lawnmower. I do hope you found this demonstration on how to service your lawnmower useful. If you need any more information on our lawnmowers or any of our other products, simply visit hyundaipowerequipment.co.uk. Should you require any of the service parts I've used, you can call our parts department on 01646 687880. I've been Adrian, and happy mowing!